lines of battle, mass incarceration of black peoples via unjust laws, erasing black culture and slavery from government records and the history books, erasing dark skin tones through mass immigration of light-skinned people and interracial marriage. These are the tactics that Argentina used to eradicate black people and black culture from their country. In this video, we will discuss the tactics Argentina used to eliminate their black problem and the effects it has taken on the small black population that remains. And after digesting this information, we must ask ourselves, is America next?
In the late 18th century, according to a census by its Spanish colonial masters, estimates suggested that nearly 30% of the population had African ancestry, which meant afro-argentines made up one-third of the population. By 1857, 79 years later, the black population had dropped to 15%. Today, Argentina is considered the whitest country in South America, which is odd considering that, like Brazil, they were colonized and subjected to Spanish colonists shipping in African slaves from the west coast of the African continent. One thing is certain, black people did not just vanish from the historical accounts of Argentina. The afro-argentines were written out of it. The real question to be asked then is how? How was a whole racial population washed out of history? The disappearance of the black population occurred in different ways. Few were circumstantial, but some were intentional. These ways are different, yet when combined, give a well-rounded explanation of how Argentina erased its black people from history. These combined methods demonstrated acts under the umbrella of whitening. Whitening can simply be described as an act of reimagining a race towards whiteness. The rationale behind this act is that there exist some societal privileges that benefit white people compared to people of other races. By implication, it means that black people are of a race inferior to whites. Also, by extension, the ideology is backed by the belief that black people should be erased by the gradual loss of their black genes through marriages to whites and birthing children who, based on their whiter skin, will be closer to the white construct and standard. The sudden and drastic disappearance of black Africans from Argentina is typically attributed to two factors. First is the war against Paraguay from 1865 to 1870, in which thousands of black people fought for the military, as well as various other wars. Deaths on the battlefield also led to a vast gender gap among the African population, leading black women and white men to bear children together and dilute the black population. As Argentina solidified its independence, waves of European immigrants flooded the country, contributing to the growth of its population. However, these new arrivals brought with them deeply ingrained racist beliefs that further intensified the already existing prejudice against black individuals. White supremacy and the belief in racial hierarchies began to take root in Argentine society, with black people becoming targets of discrimination and violence. Argentina's elites propagated the notion that the black population posed threats to the country's social order and stability. Racist stereotypes were disseminated, painting black individuals as uncivilized, intellectually inferior, and prone to criminality. These stereotypes were used to justify the exclusion and removal of black Argentines from mainstream society. A second devastating factor that led to the disappearance of the black populace was the outbreak of yellow fever in Buenos Aires in 1871, which killed swaths of the local population. Many sources, however, point to a far more sinister force that led to the near extinction of the black race in Argentina. The covert genocide perpetrated by Domingo Faustino Sarmiento, president of Argentina from 1868 to 1874, played a key role in decimating the Afro-Argentine population. Sarmiento was a staunch proponent of white European racial purity. Discussing the mixed-race Argentine cowboys known as gauchos, he stated that their only use was to serve as fertilizer when they died. Equally chilling, he wrote in his diary in 1848, "In the United States, 4 million are black, and within 20 years will be 8 million. What is to be done with such blacks, hated by the white race? Slavery is a parasite that the vegetation of English colonization has left attached to leafy tree of freedom." During his time in office, Sarmiento commenced a systematic erasure of African existence through a series of policy decisions that ultimately proved inimical to black life. He segregated the black community from European descendants, depriving them of tolerable infrastructure and healthcare, and thus effectively condemning them to die when cholera and yellow fever outbreaks swept through the city. He also forcibly recruited afro-argentines into the military, imprisoned them for crimes that were minor or entirely invented, and executed them en masse. By 1875, the toxic mix of repressive policies, disease outbreaks, and ongoing conflict had so depleted the black population that the government did not even bother to register African descendants in the national census. Today, black people have been erased not only physically, but also metaphorically from the country's consciousness and perceived history.
No es malo. Yo soy negra y no soy mala.
No terminó el racismo con mi hermano.
Me da bronca sentir que tengo que justificar que soy argentina, porque mis ancestros hicieron muchísimo por este país. Siempre el argentino trató de ser blanco europeo, y por eso mismo siguen pensando que lo negro es malo. Lo negro no es malo. Yo soy negra y no soy mala. Al resto de la gente por ahí le parezco exótica, le parezco rara, le llamo la atención. Ellos te ven negra, pero no lo suficientemente negra. Sos negrita y sos linda, sos una negrita linda, no sos tan negra.
No, there's no people from Africa, no.
Casi todos somos descendientes de italianos o de españoles.
Los grupos en el poder, en Argentina y en otros países de América, trataron de blanquear su población. Eso era el objetivo de modernizar al país, quitando la población indígena a través de matanzas y blanqueando la población negra a través de la inmigración de europeos.
Yo creo que mi hermano fue asesinado por su color de piel. Lo esposan, le dan una paliza de patadas y palos. Mi hermano sale desnudo en una ambulancia, en una camilla. El hospital Ramos Mejía está a 2 minutos de lo que es la comisaría hospital y tardaron 2 horas en llegar. No terminó el racismo con mi hermano, continúa y continúa. Y yo siento mucha soledad para defender a mi hermano, porque las organizaciones no hacen nada por el caso de mi hermano.
Si te dicen que los argentinos son todos blancos o que venimos todos de Europa y crees que eso es lo que vos tenés que aspirar. Y en realidad lo más importante creo que son las bases. Y nuestras raíces son muy fuertes. Somos nietos, hijos y bisnietos de sobrevivientes a un genocidio. Y un genocidio que aún ahora es negado.